a more laid back ASMR video with some tag questions. I was tagged by my ASMR bestie, Victorious ASMR. These questions all relate to like the kind of the 80s and 90s. So I'm going to be answering those questions. I just thought we would chill by candlelight tonight and relax. So I have the questions on my phone. So I will be referencing the phone, of course. And I'm gonna have Victorious ASMR's video linked below, so please go check out her channel. Okay. First question. If you could live in any 80s or 90s TV house, which would it be? Alright, so when I read this question, I immediately went to Charmed, because I think it counts. Charmed came out in 1998, so still counts in the 90s. I always loved the red Charmed house, and most definitely would have wanted to live in that house. Although, keeping on that theme, I loved the Sabrina the Teenage Witch house too. It was like a Victorian house. So I guess any of the witchy TV show houses from the 90s, I guess, would be appropriate to me. And then the second part to the question is and/or movie houses, which I have the same answer as she did. I immediately thought of Home Alone. I don't know why. The Home Alone house always reminds me of, I think it's supposed to take place in Chicago. Always reminds me of Chicago. And I like it. Although I still wonder, what exactly did Kevin's dad do for work? They have that big house, and he could afford to take all of those people on vacation. What did Kevin's dad do for work? I wonder. But yeah, I immediately thought of the Home Alone house. If you had to pick one TV sitcom family to be a part of, whose would you pick? So I went to The Nanny. The Nanny was one of those sitcoms I could watch. There's a long list of sitcoms that I could watch from back in the day. But I love Fran. And I mean, I guess they were rich, so maybe that would be nice too, but I love Fran. I love Fran Fine. And Mr. Sheffield was hilarious, and so was Niles and Cece and the other kids. So I would like to be a part of The Nanny. Favorite episode of your favorite sitcom or sitcoms? Okay, so all of my favorite episodes are depressing, or they deal with serious subjects. Like a good honorable mention would be the episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where Will's dad comes back into town and then he bails. I love that episode, even though it's heartbreaking. But when I read this question, I immediately went to the show Roseanne, the original show, before it came back. And there's a 2-part episode, warning for sensitive subject. There's a 2-part episode that deals with domestic violence, where Jackie's boyfriend beats the crap out of her, and it's horrible. But I love a couple parts of the 2-part episode that make it my favorite. There's this part where they find out about it her family, and Dan just grabs his coat and leaves, and you as the viewer know exactly what he's gonna go do. And then there's this really funny part in part 2 where Darlene has to go give him bail money, which kind of brings the comedy back. But for a lot of the sitcoms, I really like the episodes where they deal with more serious subjects, and that one just came to my mind when I read this question. Name a smell that always brings you back to the 90s or early 2000s. The cotton candy perfume. Cotton candy perfume. And we still have some around my house. My mom loves it. But the cotton candy perfume, that's what I thought of for the early 2000s. Are there any foods or drinks that were discontinued from the 80s or 90s that you would pay to bring back? Yes, those damn candies. The cream savor candies. There was like strawberry and orange. They were heaven. And they discontinued those. They were delicious. Do you know what I'm talking about? The cream savor. Strawberries and cream. Candies. Little hard candies. They were so delicious. And they got rid of them. They should bring those back. I think they should bring those back for sure. Favorite 80s, 90s movies and shows. Okay. I made a quick little list because you know I would be talking for about 6 hours if I talked about every single favorite show or every single favorite movie, because film things are my life. So I made a list for 80s and 90s shows. We have some of these that I rewatched a lot. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Roseanne, The Nanny, Home Improvement, Family Matters, Full House, Boy Meets World, Growing Pains, Sister, Goosebumps, Batman the Animated Series, and So Weird. For 80s movies, once again, I just picked some random ones because my favorite movie list could go on for like 10 hours. Beetlejuice, Star Wars, Goonies, Clue, Dirty Dancing, Ghostbusters. Those were like the 80s, roughly. And some 90s, we had Addams Family, Parent Trap, Ever After, Scream, The Mummy, and Mermaids. Those are just some that I picked from the vast collection of shows and movies that I have in my noggin up here. You can bring back one fashion or beauty statement from that time. Which is it? Okay, so I actually missed this beauty statement, but I've done it for some videos and some kind of cosplays and things like that. But so I was born in 1992, and I have always really loved the 80s intense blush. Okay, I think it might be because I love the Joan Jett I Love Rock and Roll album cover, and in that Joan Jett has some really intense pink blush across her cheeks, and I think intense blush looks awesome. If I watch 80s movies or 80s costumes when the blush is like super intense, I love it. I think that more blush should come back. Everyone has been about the contour and highlight for so many years now, but I think we need more blush. Like, blush against the cheeks. I love it. I think it should come back. Fave pastime from those years that is no longer a thing. So, like Vicky said, Blockbuster, forever a childhood memory for me, going with friends or my family to go and walk the movie store. Granted, I still have a movie store around, so I get to do that a little bit, but Blockbuster was a little bit different, a little bit more intense, and it was like the favorite thing to do. However, I will always remember the disappointment of when you went to grab a movie and it was like the cover movie, like the VHS or the DVD eventually, and you went to grab the actual rental case behind it and it was gone. Someone had already rented it. It's tragic. I also remember this indoor play structure thing that was really popular. I think it was called Super Play, but it was amazing. It was like an obstacle course of like climbing things and like mats you could jump on and things like that. If they would make an adult version of that, I would have the time of my life. Like, kind of like parkour, but less intense for those of us that don't look like Stephen Amell. Who was your first 80s or 90s crush? Okay, so I'm gonna count 2 here. So my first crush that I ever remember having, like my first heartthrob, was Jeremy Sumter from the 2003 Peter Pan, okay? He had my heart for a bit, but that's 2003. So after that, when I was getting into 80s movies, I remember thinking that Patrick Swayze from Dirty Dancing was so cute. So I feel like that was a pretty good crush for me. I love Dirty Dancing anyway, and Patrick Swayze. Can you really go wrong? So, Jeremy Sumter was my first official crush in 2003. But Patrick Swayze has an honorable mention for, like, the first 80s guy. And She's Like the Wind, that song that he sings. Oh, I love it. Love, 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 love it. Worst and favorite sitcom intro song. Okay, so I have a bunch of favorites. I actually used to have a playlist of only theme songs. I'm kind of sad that shows don't have theme songs anymore. Like 80s, 90s, 2000s, all that. I absolutely adore TV show theme songs. And the fact that it's just like, usually just says the name now is so boring to me. So I have a couple favorites for, sitcom intro songs. The Nanny was great. Set up the whole show. The last season of Roseanne, as Becky mentioned. There's various versions of the Roseanne theme song. And the final season, they had Blues Traveler add in lyrics, and the lyrics are really great. It's like, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. We're gonna last longer than the Greatest Wall of China. Things like that. So I really like the last season of Roseanne's. Sister, Sister. That one also had 2 theme songs. The earlier one was okay, but later on in Sister, Sister, Tia and Tamara sang their own versions, and I love that one. I used to sing that all the time. Goosebumps. The Goosebumps theme song is really popular, like on Instagram or TikTok around Halloween time, and it slaps. It's a great theme song. Scooby-Doo. You can't go wrong with Scooby-Doo. I prefer the classic Scooby-Doo theme song, because there's been, of course, variations of Scooby-Doo and the theme song, but I love the classic one, especially like the bats at the beginning, and then the music starts. And the Fresh Prince. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is probably one of the more iconic TV show theme songs, or sitcom theme songs, I should say. Now, what was it, worst? I have one that annoyed me, so that's what I'm gonna go with. The theme song for Step by Step always annoyed me. It has the same sound, and I'm pretty sure the same guy wrote it and sings it as Family Matters and Full House, but the Step by Step theme song just always annoyed me. It wasn't one of my favorite shows anyway, but I didn't care for the theme song. What song, movie, show, or place makes you the most nostalgic? So it's definitely a movie and kind of a place. The movie Page Master. I love that movie even to this day, and it gives me nostalgia because I remember going to Blockbuster and re-renting Page Master over and over again until my parents finally just bought it for me. I love that movie. It's so sweet, so cute, and it definitely, when I rewatch it, I think about my childhood and going to Blockbuster to get it. Do you have anything such as toy or VHS movies that are no longer available or discontinued, or even worth money now in 2021? I have some of my Disney VHSs, so from like the 90s, some 80s of Disney. I don't know if those are worth anything. I really don't. I have some toys. Once again, I don't think they're worth anything, although I do have some vintage Star Wars toys that I assume are worth something. And you can kind of see those around, but they're more collectibles now because they're the vintage Star Wars toys. But besides that, I don't think I have anything really specific that I don't think. I'm pretty sure I have that Princess Diana Beanie Baby somewhere in the case because everyone said it was going to be worth so much money, and then Beanie Babies aren't worth shit anymore. I heard someone say that Funko Pops are this generation's Beanie Babies, and I was like, whew. So you're telling me I went through the Beanie Baby phase and the Funko Pop phase? I think these are cuter. I think Funko Pops are cuter. Describe what middle school or high school was like for you if you attended anywhere from 90s to early 2000s. So, I was born in 92, I graduated in 2010, so the early 2000s, like, that's elementary school for me, maybe into middle school, roughly. I mean, I will say that with my generation, technology moved fairly quickly. I remember no one having computers and the internet being a very special thing that you had. And I remember we went to my one particular friend's house and she had internet and I could print off some Charmed pictures or Spice Girls pictures. And that was like a really cool thing. And then around that time at my elementary school, we started getting like those colorful Apple computers, like with the huge blue back. And so we were all taking typing classes and learning about computers pretty quickly. And then by the time we progressed into like middle school, like more and more things were growing. And then by the time we got in high school, like part of my section of the high school had like laptops. And so when you really compare like the years, my generation went from no one having computers to having computers that took up your phone line and made a horrible sound to laptops and everyone having smartphones, and it was just a very fast progression for a lot of people my age. Other than that, technology was the big thing, but other than that, I didn't really care much for middle school and high school, so I will say that I had a high school teacher that would put cell phones in the snake cage if they went off in class, and I'm sure that's an even bigger problem now that there's smartphones. Worst fashion statement you made back in the day, but thought it was cool at the time. So I definitely had the thicker hair stripes for different colors. It wasn't blonde. Blonde was the really popular one, to have the chunky blonde highlights, I had thick red highlights, like my hair was black and then I had chunky red ones. So, like the big chunky highlights that were or big chunky color bits that were so popular. Definitely had that. And I also was guilty of the pants underneath the skirt trend. Leggings a little bit more acceptable, but like the full-on like jeans underneath a skirt. Granted, that was fine with me because I didn't show off my legs whatsoever. But that was definitely like not the cutest fashion statement. Not the cutest. And finally, a show that you would bring back if you could as a reboot, aside from the couple that were already made into reboots. Okay, so I have a love-hate relationship with the reboots and the continuation series that they do, because they never really match up with what the original show had. You know, I was really excited when they did Boy Meets World, but Girl Meets World didn't quite have the feeling, and probably because it was aimed at the younger generation, and I'm an adult, so I get that. Roseanne didn't do it for me, for obvious reasons. Some of the other ones that did. Fuller House was okay. However, I will say I lost interest, and I haven't finished that show. I'm not sure which other ones have happened, but if I had to pick, I would like to see maybe The Nanny. I love The Nanny, and I'd like to see like the same characters back, so like a continuation reboot, and all the same actors, and just like what everybody's up to. You know, the kids are grown. Some of the kid actors still do little projects, and I would just like to see what that crazy mess of people are up to these days. So I guess The Nanny. Alright, lovely. So that was the 80s, 90s tag that I was tagged in. I hope that you guys liked these questions and the answers. I tag anyone that wants to do this because I never know who to tag because I'm awkward like that. So if you do this tag, please let me know so I can watch it. I would love to hear your answers and see how they differ. Obviously, a lot of our answers will depend on the year you were born or when you grew up, but I'd still love to hear your answers. Alright, lovelies. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.